So this morning I wanted to take a few minutes to go over a bunch of different sites that I have tried, bow hunting sites that I have tried over the years. I've got a lot of them in front of me. I'm going to be going over a few that are not in front of me as well. I'm not going to go over price and weight other than say one's light or heavy. You can look at the exact specs. There's tons of informational and tutorial videos on these sites. I'm just going to go over my thoughts on the pros and cons, advantages and disadvantages of each one, applicable to probably more mountain hunting than Midwest or back east. So out of the gate though, I will say I'm not a big fan of single pin sites for hunting. I do know people that use single pins and are successful with them. For me, I like a minimum of 3, but I'm more of a 5-pin site guy. 3 can get it done, but I think for Western hunting, 5 is a good number. But if you have your own system and it works well for you, then that's what's most important. So having said that, when I'm doing these reviews, some of the things I may talk about as far as 1, 2, 3 pins, vertical pins, horizontal pins, some of that's going to be my own personal preference. Some of these sites I have used since late 1990s. Other ones I've just picked up. So I'm just going to kind of slide across from right to left here and talk about each one of these. So this right here is the Dialed Proof. This is their new version. They had the Arxos last year. Now, as far as most improved upon sites in the industry, I would say Dialed stepped up their game the most from the Arxos to the Proof. A few different things that are good and bad about this. And I'm actually going to grab the pick rail version first. So the bad thing about the pick rail version, and they may have fixed this, using this on a Hoyt specifically, you don't have enough adjustment in the windage, or a lot of people have not mounting this with the pick rail. So that's a problem. And I know with Hoyt specifically, I believe they couldn't get it far enough to the left, if I'm not mistaken. It could have been the right. I can't remember. And I had the same issue. This was on my bow. I didn't even shoot because I mounted this and I can look down my arrow on the rest and see that it wasn't even going to be remotely close. So I did use this one quite a bit. And leveling this site is a little bit of a pain in the ass. You can get it done. You definitely need L angles. Watch the tutorial video. The site is very fairly durable. I will say I did break this rail when I was adjusting, tightening the pin on this site, and then ended up I ended up taking it apart and taking one of the pins from a different site and putting it on here. I was a little bit under speculation, I guess you could say, as far as the third axis adjustment, how rigid that would be and hold in place. Seemed to do fine. It's a little bit goofy. You've got a free spin dial or elevation knob, meaning once you lock this in, there's an Allen you can loosen in there and spin this to give you yards back and forth, meaning if you lost a yard or two, you can dial that, loosen that Allen, which is nice. A little bit of a pain in the ass getting the sight tape on there. For me, and when I say that, as you get older, vision, whatever, the sight tapes are really narrow, so that's a little bit of a pain, but not that big of a deal, and you can pop those off. Overall, this sight's pretty good. I did have this rattle loose, where the dovetail mount, I have had that rattle loose a couple times, as well as the windage knob has rattled loose, but overall, the sight is a very good sight. Pretty dang durable. I didn't have any issues with that. Pins are pretty clean, relatively durable as far as that goes. You can put a sight light on this, but overall, not a bad sight. It is expensive. Is it worth the money or not worth the money? I mean, all of these sites are really expensive. So, it's kind of when in Rome, right? Like, none of them are cheap. I mean, the custom bow equipment's probably got the best price point. I'll go over that in a minute, but not a bad site. I would certainly hunt with this site and may end up hunting with it. The only downside, again, I did break that rail with the pin, but not a bad option. So decent overall. Not my top choice though. So coming over here, I have multiple custom bow equipments in the garage, but this is the Tech Light, and I think it's the Tech Light Pro. Yeah, so there's newer versions of this. There's multiple versions of this. There's 3-pin, 5-pin. I've got 5-pin horizontal. I've got a single pin. I've got up pins. Durability is the number one thing with this. This is not overly durable. They use Delrin. I don't know if the newest one is improved, but for a price point sight that you can walk into a dealer, this is a really good sight for the money. Is it something that I would trust on a mountain goat hunt or something like that? No, it's not. But you could certainly get away with most hunts with it, and you'd probably be fine on a, extreme sheep mountain goat hunt. But I like the sight. It's just not overly durable. It's not overly difficult to adjust, but it's definitely not something that it's not in my top 5. I will also say, unless they fix this, your pointer, there is enough slop in that pointer. It flops around like a beer can top. That is a real negative for me. Just in general, it's loose as a goose. There's nothing micro or fine about it. I don't like that indicator. The metal sight tapes are really difficult to see on the ones that I have, so I've had to actually, take white out and put white out on those lines to make it a little bit better. Overall, though, not a bad sight, great price point, big negative side and durability. So not in my top choice. You can get away with it, but great price point. Next is the option archery. This is the Canyon Pounder and then the standard option sight. The Canyon Pounder is definitely in my top 3. Little bit difficult to figure out how to adjust. There's lots of videos on it, but you've got sight tapes for either side. The way that this works for people not watching is you have 5 pins, but you're 40, so your middle pin is your rover, and you can pop this open, and then when you dial, you're dialing that as your single pin. So obviously you can 27, 32, 33, you can hone in with that one pin, and then when you want to do multiple pins, you shut that. Now, if you torque your bow a little bit, this pin does adjust in and out. Like if you look down all these right now, it would look crazy because my pin is sticking out, my 40-yard pin, but that's because it's in front of these other pins, right? So you've got to adjust that in and out for how much you torque the bow. Leveling this is another kind of a pain in the butt to get it leveled. You can do it. Very durable sight, very good sight. In my top 3, heavy and very expensive, but it is amazing sight. Probably requires a level of competency that if you're just getting going or not taking archery super serious, this is probably not the sight for you. It's probably a little bit much. You need to be kind of a techie dork to figure this out, to get the most out of the sight that you can. But in my top 3, I killed my mountain goat with this and a bunch of other animals. I love this sight. I can't suggest it enough. And this is a Viper light. I don't know if they sell these, but I have these on a lot of these sites. These Viper lights, I suggest everybody get them. Get them on Amazon. But you can hook that light either to your main pins or your single pin or both. But this is one of the best hunting sights ever created. Very big fan of it, in my top 3. Now, this is the older version. Same thing. Quality's great. Dan Evans is a stud. He's awesome. Oh, look at that. I've got pins sticking to the magnet. With this one, though, rather than, the whole sight housing moving up and down, you can see just your one pin is moving inside of the housing. So when you pop these open, then your pin is moving inside of the housing. This isn't going to be as accurate as the entire housing moving like the Canyon Pounder. This isn't in my top 3, but it would be if the Canyon Pounder wasn't in the mix. But this is an amazing option, the original option sight. Great sight, easy to level, pretty dang durable, still expensive, but this is another great option. I keep saying option because it's option archery. I really like both of those. Now, next 2 over here are the Spot Hoggs. I'm running long, 9 minutes. These are the Spot Hoggs. I've used Spot Hoggs since the late 90s. Cade and the crew over at Spot Hogg are amazing people. Chris, the Spot Hogg side is definitely what I would say would be the pinnacle of durability and consistency in the archery industry. Anytime when the rubber meets the road, if anybody's going to choose, it's going to be a Spot Hogg for durability, even if they lie to you. There's some pros and cons to them, right? There's not as much micro adjustability as some of the other sights, but they are bomb proof. They're very well made, very great company. But this year, they came out with a new sight called the Boonie, but I'm going to talk about this one first. So this is the Fast Eddy, and I've used the Fast Eddy quite a bit. This is the 5-pin version. Really the only downside, again, it's a little bit heavy. All of them are expensive and not quite the same micro or fine adjustment you may have some of the other sights. Now, as far as leveling goes, there's a second and third axis leveling adjustment on these. Some people kind of bitch because there's not a first or whatever. Anyway, you can't go wrong with a Spot Hogg. They're one of the best, if not the best sight in the industry. Again, micro, not as micro as the other ones, but they're pretty dang easy to level out. This little L-angle deal up here can trip people out as far as getting your housing where you need to be left and right. But the Spot Hoggs are an amazing sight. And again, there's a ton of different videos, so I'm just doing a brief overview on any of these. But this Fast Eddy is an amazing sight, and it's not in my top 3, but that's only because the Boonie is. So this sight is the new one for this year. I haven't had this very long, in the spirit of whatever, full honesty, transparency. But this may go down in the history as one of the, if not the greatest hunting sights ever made. They changed a few things up on the sight. I definitely like this wind or this elevation adjustment where you've got that knob inside and then you can dial this up and down and then you can lock it in, or you can leave it with some gription and leave it unlocked and it won't bounce when you shoot it, which is great. I like the way the indicator adjusts here, and there's a 1.5 miles of adjustment on that indicator, which is great. Leveling is basically the same as the older sights, but you do have a lot more windage options with this. Again, and it is also lighter weight. I've always liked this housing with the yellow Spot Hoggs. They're pretty dang bright as far as the pins go. So the Boonie is definitely in the top 3. It's kind of like the Swarovski NL Pierce. I don't know how you could make it a whole lot better. This is an amazing sight. Spot Hogg should definitely get an award for this. So that is definitely in my top 3. All the changes they made were good. I don't see any negative side to that. Next up, and I've used these more than probably anything in the last few years, and that's the HHA. This is the Tetra Tournament, and this is the Rise. These sights they're great. The downside, I want more than 4 pins. That was part of it. I do like more than 4 pins. They only offer 4 pins. And a 3-pin, 1-pin version. They have a ton of different versions. I like the way that I don't know what you want to call that rheostat, but the way that you can cover up your fibers to dim or brighten up your pins. The leveling on this, I do like. The only thing on the third axis adjustment back here, that was really the one thing that made me stop using this. It seemed like, and James Yates can kind of dive into this if you want to ask James, he's much more of a tech nerd than I am. This could move. Now, I did work with them, and it looks like they did make the changes on adding an Allen in here to help with the adjustment and locking it in place, but you would get micro movements out of this third axis on extreme hunts. I got a micrometer. Yates did the same thing, and it would move a little bit. I'm not a huge. It's multiple companies like. I believe not. HHA's been copied a lot. I think the new UltraView, the adjustment left and right on the HHA was kind of copied by UltraView. Yeah, everybody copies everybody. I'm not saying that in a super downside, but this is kind of nice because you've got a massive gang adjust for the windage, and then you've got a micro adjust. I do like that. The clicks aren't super micro, but I mean, it's plenty enough. Pins are pretty easy to adjust as far as that goes. Pretty durable, easy to move around. The HHA was in my top 3 until we had this site, which I'll talk about here in a minute. Cannot go wrong with this site. The crew at HHA is amazing. Chris is awesome. And again, this adjustment, they did change that a little bit. No, it is identical. They didn't. That sucks. I should have looked at that before the review. That is the only downside, though, really, with this sight, was that the third axis could move a little bit under extreme conditions. Other than that, amazing sight. The rise is awesome. Everything they make is awesome. Great company. And it was in my top 3, and it could go back in my top 3 depending upon how this thing performs. But great sight, great people. So this is the Excel driver. This is the pick rail. I want to thanks Corbin. Corbin with Corbin's Archery sent this out to me. I appreciate that. I have always been very skeptical of the landslide and Excel sights on the durability side of things. They make amazing products. The people over there are great. But Corbin had told me the changes they made on this were pretty amazing. I have to say I'm extremely impressed with this sight. I do like this dial and how fast you can track down with it back up. Adjustments are extremely easy to make. You can adjust the stopper on this really easy. You can put another one on the bottom so you don't dial it too fast into your arrow. The third axis adjustment is really easy. I mean, all of the adjustments on this sight are easy. It's also kind of nice because when you have a gang adjust here that's not micro for the housing, but that also will pivot. So you can put a level on this, and there's videos on this. But sometimes it's kind of nice, depending upon how your sight picture looks, you can angle this slightly to get a better look at your pins as far as pivoting it. And there's videos about that. I really like how they have there was 3 of these on here, but I really like how they have the indicator pins. In this case, I have one indicator pin at 20 and my other indicator pin for my 60-yard pin. The reason why I do that, when I want to reach out and touch something, I have my 60-yard pin as my rover, but I can also use my 20-yard pin, which is a little bit closer to the center of the housing, and I may use my 60 or my 20 as a rover, and I have it set up that way with this. But the only downside I've seen is there's a little bit of play in this housing, and it's not horrible. There's more actually in the HHA and definitely more in the custom bow equipment. But this sight is awesome, and I would say by the end of the year, I have the driver on one of my bows right now, and I have the boonie on the other. I hate to say which of those two is going to win I don't want to guess, right? I'm going to use them throughout the hunting season and go from there. But definitely my top 2 would be the driver, for the second version 2 of the driver, and then the Spot Hogg boonie. Now, I haven't messed with the newest landslide, and I've heard that some people actually like that even more than the driver. I was always worried about the pins on the landslide, but that is a great option. I don't have a ton of experience with it compared to these other sites, though. So, not a greatly in-depth review of all these, kind of a pros and cons thing, but all of these sites are great. They're all going to do you well. The only one that's going to have huge durability issues, I would say, is the custom bow equipment for extreme use, right? Not normal use, where you may run into issues with that, but it also has the best price point. If you have questions on any of these, all of these are so freaking expensive. I think that Ultra View is like $700 or $800. I know the Canyon Pounder is. I think it's $480, $500 for a boonie. They're really expensive. So you have questions on certain things I didn't cover, ask. And if I misspoke about anything, which I don't have to worry about this, somebody correct me in the comments down below. But as you go through these, the driver, very adjustable, very lightweight, very much micro adjustments in that. You go to the HHA, not quite as much micro adjustments, heavier, more durable, moving over, but it doesn't offer 5 pins. It only does 1 through 4. You get to the boonie, you really have nothing negative about this other than it's a little bit heavier and maybe not quite as micro adjustments. But again, that boonie and that driver are pretty hard to beat. And then as we go down, the Canyon Pounder, again, in my top 3, probably in 3rd place. But that's personal preference, right? I mean, it could be in my 1st place spot depending upon what I was doing. If I was shooting a lot more tournaments with a pin bow, the driver might be a better option because I can open this up. And when I say with a pin bow, meaning, local shoots or whatever, where I want to be a little bit more accurate. The Canyon Pounder, the driver, and the boonie, though, are all amazing. This one's $700 though, so it's pretty damn expensive, a little bit heavier. So I think I babbled enough about these sites. If you have more in-depth questions, feel free, to ask. I'm actually going to be selling a bunch of these because I don't need this many sites. But if you have more in-depth questions, please ask. Thank you for tuning in. Like and subscribe and all the stuff I'm supposed to say, please. But I really appreciate the support. I hope this video helps you out, and good luck hunting this season.